Good evening, and I've calmed down at last. Now, I'm not sure as I'm taping this if it's going to be an add-on to last night's footage, because I'm not sure how much of last night's footage I'm gonna use, because there was a lot of swearing in it and it's a lot of editing to get rid of all the swearing, because as most of you have guessed, it's the specialist components Rotrex conversion that I'm doing. I opened the box on camera last night and I was pretty disappointed because there was a lot of stuff missing. What was I missing? I was missing the oil cooler, which is pretty bloody blatant part to be missing. I was missing the bracket that holds the supercharger in place. I was missing the alternator pulley, the water pump pulley, any and all parts of the tensioner setup, and I was also missing the drive belt. So this morning I sent an email to Specialist Components asking what was happening with this stuff. I didn't trust myself to just ring them because I was still so mad I wouldn't have been civil on the phone. My chilled persona would have failed me, I think, for once. I was that narked. So, what did they say? Well, somebody called Jack apologised, and he said that the reason for parts being missing was they just sent me what I needed so I could make a start on the build, and they'd use what was on the shelf, and the rest of the parts would be dispatched later this week or early next week, because at the moment they're in the middle of their move of premises. Now, if they'd been thinking like that a month ago, they could have sent me all the timing cover and all that sort of stuff. Surely those parts are their own stock. The outstanding part was the Rotrex supercharger. So if they wanted to help me get on with the build, they would have sent all that stuff a month ago, not wait until the last moment. If it was my company, I would have everything boxed up and ready, shipping list all printed out, everything ticked off, and just waiting for the superchargers to come in. But it's obviously not how they work. Now, I have heard a lot more stories about them over the past 2-3 weeks. I don't know whether they're just having a difficult time because they're moving, or they keep dropping the ball constantly, because a lot of people have parts missing from the kits, and people have paid a lot of money up front for work, and it's just been delayed by months and months and months with very little communication. So at the moment, I would say be very careful about where you're sending your money and who you're buying parts off, because unless they've got stuff in stock and then guarantee it's going to come out to you, you might have a bit of a delay, and a bit could be anything from 6 months to a month at the moment. Hopefully they'll get themselves sorted and get a few more processes in place to book their ideas up a bit, because when you're spending this sort of money, you don't want to be getting dicked about. Right, so that being said, what I'm going to do is start to put together the S-Pack kit, or the components of the S-Pack kit that I'm using, because obviously I'm 8-port, I'm an oddball, and a lot of the kit I didn't need, as I think I might have said previously in the footage I shot last night, but I haven't looked back at it and re-edited it yet, so as yet I don't know what you're going to be seeing, if that makes sense. So the common parts that we're all going to have when you're doing the S-Pack kit is the timing cover assembly. So what I'll do is I'll mount that up and I'll just explain what all the nuts and bolts are, because there wasn't any instructions, and I haven't heard of anybody else getting any instructions either. So it's a case of where does this bolt go, and I might as well just go through it and show you, and then it's there for everybody's reference. Okay, so this is the cover to the timing cover. It's in 2 parts. There's one part already on the car over there, I'll show you in a minute. But just so you know what's what, this section here, which is removable so you can access the cam vernier in the back, that comes separate, or it came separate in my case. and the bolts that hold it in are the 3 small button ones with a lock washer. It's just been a process of elimination, working out what bolt goes where. Obviously you've got these ones for fitting your crank pulley and your cam. This one, the big countersunk one even, goes down in that corner because I think the plate that holds your supercharger covers it, but obviously I haven't got that bit, so that's been hard to work out. And then these small socket screws, these are the ones that go around the outside to hold this end cover in place. And then there's, how many is there? 3. There's 3 big socket ones that hold this end plate and the main housing to the block. Okay, so here's our block with the main cover loosely placed while I was last night working out what I had and what I didn't have. It comes with the 2 countersunk bolts that go in the bottom of there, and these are the big ones that I was on about before, and obviously that's going to fit on there like that when you're finished. Obviously there's some bolts in here that belong to the supercharger bracket, which I haven't got because obviously I haven't got that bracket. What else is there? Yeah, maybe the supercharger bracket comes down here as well. I don't know, and I won't know until I get it, hopefully pretty soon. It doesn't come with the bolts for the triangular plate or the bolts that go in there that hold your timing tensioner, so you'll have to get all that as per normal from your normal sources, whether it's mini spares or you're just reusing old parts. I'll be reusing the existing parts that came off this block because all this lot was brand new, or pretty brand new. My kit didn't come with a gasket either. It goes in the back of there, which is this one. It's the end plate gasket, as most people call it. Front plate, end plate, don't care what you call it, but it sits in the back of there. So what I'm going to do tonight is lather that up in some sealant, put it on, and use these bolts just to hold the cover in place while that sets. And then after that, look at putting the crank, well I can't, well yes I can put the crank pulley on and the cam pulley and get that all set up. I start to set my timing and all that palaver next, but first things first is this, I'll just put that on because that's pretty much all I can do at the moment. Other parts that came in the kit that I showed on the previous clips, they weren't sure what everything was. Obviously that is the timing cover or seal that goes in the cover as per normal. This, which I thought was a bit of tube, is actually the seal that goes between this cover and the bit that's on the block. This was the breather that goes on the timing cover housing there, the cover. Came in a couple of parts, it just screws together like so, and you can see the stuff inside it, and that is held on to the end cover with the 4 countersunk set screws, or whatever you want to call them, bolts, whatever. They go in there. And also I noticed in amongst the bag of stuff was this tiny little o-ring which goes in here and creates a seal between the timing cover and that. One of the major parts that I got yesterday was obviously the bottom pulley. That is the only pulley I did get, the other 2 are still to come. And I measured that, and it's 114mm, which is the standard MPI size, the biggest one they do. It's made out of steel, and one of my big issues was that I had no crank signal, no reference at this end of the engine. So what I'm going to do is, you can buy a trigger wheel which is called a ring gear style trigger wheel from triggerwheel.com, and it has an internal diameter of 114mm which means it should fit onto there, and then it's probably gonna, well, I don't know until I've done a test fit, but it's probably going to be easier to weld it onto there, fasten it onto that outside edge, but I think that might be tight for room, so we probably have to put it on the inside edge where there is no room, but we'll just see how we go with that. But that was the plan, whether it can be overlaid over this and then 2 or 3 welds on it or something like that to hold it in place to stop it from moving. I don't know yet. It would probably be better on the back edge so it's not in the way of the belt if you ever have to take the belt on and off, but it just depends how much slack is on your tension and how far out the trigger wheel comes from your space as to how much it's going to get in the way. It'd obviously be easier to weld on here and fasten onto there because it's got a lot wider flange than it has at this side. Well, that's been ordered today from triggerwheels.com, about 30 quid. So we'll just see how we're going to go for that. I mean, the other option is that you have this machined. I don't know how it would be done, some sort of CNC machining, and actually have the teeth machined into this face with the missing tooth. But I thought the trigger wheel was an easier option for now to try. But it's just a case of suck it and see, and see if it works, as with most of this conversion. Okay, so that's the main front plate cum timing cover fastened on, just for the moment while I let the gasket goo dry. You can see all the fastenings. These are the ones that hold the outer cover on, these are the ones that hold it to the block, and those two under there. Triangular plates on as well for the camshaft. So what I'm going to do now is just leave that to dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll come on and see about putting the cam pulley on, all that sort of stuff, get it lined up and start setting the timing. Of course, the big issue with this is that when I set the timing, I'll probably end up hitting the I think it's number 1 and number 4 conrod bolts with the cam lobes, so they might need a little bit of tiny bit of action with the file just to stop them from interfering with each other. What else have I done? Oh, I've put the timing cover oil seal in place. So there you go, there's the timing cover oil seal put in place. Just goes in as per standard. What I did find was that I was able to push it in quite a bit just by hand, so it's obviously tapered slightly, that opening. Then it got really tight and I had to use a big socket spaced out over there to drive it down, making sure I didn't take big chunks out of the nice alloy, and I rested it on some soft material so I didn't damage his face as well. So that's that ready to go pretty much. One thing I might have to bear in mind is that the breather that goes on there might get in the way of me belts going from the main up that way towards where my alternator is going to be, but that's all to be determined yet.